So, yeah, there might be a bit of a lag here, microphone issues, technical issues, but we'll get back into it. Yeah, so Daniel Bryan's firing was around the time that the Reddit Squared Circle page was taken off, and I just remember being on there and there's stuff every day about, oh, is he coming back? Is he not? He's doing this indie. But yeah, so he basically went off, did the indies for a bit, and WWE rehired him, but they also allowed him to finish up his indie booking. So he was in WWE, but like wrestling at the indies at the same time, which was like a really cool, sort of interesting, unique position for a wrestler that's done a lot of sort of unique, interesting things and had a bit of a wild career.
So yeah, that's where Daniel Bryan is on the eve of this match. The other ones that I'd want to pick out as members of Team WWE. So obviously Bret Hart, surprising to see him competing in a match at SummerSlam 2010.
Having a stroke.
After having a stroke. So he'd infamously not been on great terms with the WWE for a while, had he? After the Montreal screw job, which, yeah, probably something for another podcast to go into that one. But probably you can see both sides of that argument there, is what I'll say, just to be a bit...
Bret screwed Bret, that's what I'll say. But yeah, he comes back for a Mania match with Vince. I think, they both got older and tempers waned. Probably one of the worst WrestleMania matches ever, but I don't really want to mention that too much in case you pick it later down the line.
Notes here.
In fairness to Bret, considering he's had a stroke, probably not been working out, not had a match in 10 11 years, has no business being in a main event of SummerSlam. He doesn't look too bad.
No,
obviously, you can't take a bump because you can't throw a man who's had a stroke on his ass. But
much to, I assume, Vince's annoyance.
Yeah, he's like, "Why? I could do it." But when he looks so smooth when he's actually like doing a few moves. But I mean, he's Bret Hart, but you don't lose. He's like riding a bike, are you?
It is now. So at the time, Bret had been, as I mentioned, the general manager of Raw, but then kind of loses this after Nexus beat him up and put him out of action. So he's replaced by the anonymous general manager, who is anonymous because he doesn't want to get beat up by Nexus in the same way that Bret Hart has done. And if you stay till the end, we'll reveal who the anonymous general manager is.
Yeah, it was a great reveal.
Like, probably one of the greatest moments in wrestling. I think everyone, I wasn't watching wrestling then, but I think everyone knows where they were when the anonymous general manager was revealed. So that's why Bret was there. John Cena, obviously, at this point, is very much Super Cena and was already a 7-time WWE champion at this point. So I think that's
7 at this point.
Yeah, I totted this up.
Now, so Jesus.
Oh, yeah, so he was like a young up-and-comer. But, I mean, the Cena push, we were talking about it last time when we did a match from 2004, how you could kind of see this was the beginnings of the push. And I think 2005 was when it really came into its own, and then it was 5 solid years of John Cena being around. Apart from his injury, obviously, in his Royal Rumble return, when he then got straight back into the main event scene, yeah. But so that's why John Cena's there, and obviously is the savior of WWE, as we'll get onto. And the other important side note to this is that Edge and Jericho are members of Team WWE, but they did not like John Cena. No. And they'd been saying, the Nexus aren't the problem, John, you're the problem. But then they had been convinced to join right at the very end.
There were worries that they wouldn't join Team WWE, and the thing I noticed sort of talking about that is, like, if you'd have taken Edge and Jericho out of that team and put 2 other people in, like, it was already lacking star power to the point where they had to put in an elderly, ill Bret Hart.
Sorry, what do you mean? John Morrison, R-Truth? It could have been the Great Khali.
Yeah, I know. Well, obviously, if Khali had been there, it's a different story. But like, looking at the pay-per-view as a whole, you just notice, like, there's a real lack of names. I mean, it was very much a one-match pay-per-view. The rest of the card was just but it was like Randy Orton versus Sheamus, which,
I mean, that's what you kind of shove in as a title match
filler.
or something. Yeah, filler.
And then
and still today is the kind of thing they could do when they've got nothing else on.
Big Show versus the Straight Edge Society in a handicap match, which just mean.
Which Big Show won?
Won, yeah. And now he's in AEW.
Melina defeated Alicia Fox.
Oh, I mean, that was famously so they did Tough Enough, which was similar to NXT kind of, and they had one of the amateurs, Cameron, who would go on to get signed by the WWE. So Stone Cold was hosting it, and he asked her what her favorite match was, and she said Melina versus Alicia Fox, and he just goes, "What?" Like, he just looks over, who?
Which is surprising, because obviously if it's such a highly regarded match, is this going to be one of yours that you do?
Well, possibly. You'd think Stone Cold would knew about it. But yeah, so the real lack of star power at the moment. So they do need to build up these new stars. So thankfully they've got 7 of them, 8 of them if you include Daniel Bryan in the main event. So it really looks like we're about to have a bright future for the WWE.
Yep, it can only go one way. Surely they're not just going to cut it all off while the shoots are there. But no, let's get on to the match itself. And the first thing I noticed from this is that when you've got a 7-on-7 elimination match, obviously the Nexus all come out together, so that's fine. Watching 7 people's entrances, and like pay-per-view entrances as well, so they really milk it. It was probably about 10 minutes of just watching people walk to the ring.
That's the worst thing about multi-man matches. It's just like, all right, I'm ready for this match, let's go. Oh, we've got half an hour of entrances. Yeah,
and the second thing to note before we even get underway is you say how great Bret Hart looks, given what he's gone through.
Moves together, yeah.
His ring gear is the worst thing I've ever seen. So it's just like a white Bret Hart top.
Yeah.
And he's got like the jean shorts like John Cena. It's not a strong look. It's not even the black and purple that you associate with Bret Hart.
Pink and black, come on.
But colour blind, maybe.
Okay.
I meant pink and black. You know what I mean.
Yeah. But I mean, you couldn't have put him in a leotard, or you couldn't have put him in the spandex.
No, but you could have put him in like a leather jacket or something.
Yeah. And some pink and black.
Yeah. It's not the best look. And then obviously
he stands out. He looks like someone's dad just rocks up and gone, "What have you said about my son?"
Yeah, and I mean that has happened a lot in the history of wrestling, just not in this specific context. But the match gets underway with the 2 powerhouses of Darren Young versus Daniel Bryan. One of the things that I'd like to call on commentary is obviously Michael Cole is really giving Daniel Bryan a hard time. And this is because he wanted The Miz to be the 7th man, because Michael Cole at this point and for several years earlier was The Miz's number 1 fan.
Yeah. Cole as a heel commentator. God, these were dark days. Like, looking back on it, like, Jesus, how they very much in the next year or 2 looked into getting themselves out of this hole of just being crap. I mean, they also made several mistakes in booking, which we will talk about in relation to this match. But yeah, oof.
But so that's where he's at. And also Cole says that Daniel Bryan has, and quotes, apparently wrestled all over the continents in the minor leagues. I mean, he is a 10-year veteran basically at this point. Like, give him a little bit of respect.
He was probably a bigger name in wrestling than a lot of the people who were hired by WWE. Like, he's seen by many as the best wrestler in the world at this point. So,
yeah, but apparently he's wrestled in some other continents. So, so that's all he knows. Yeah. But he straight away pretty much hits the crossface, as it's called at this point, to Young, and Justin Gabriel comes in. John Morrison eliminates Michael Tarver pretty quickly after this as well. So it starts off and you've got Team WWE looking very strong already and completely on top.
But then, first time ever, Nexus have the numbers game against them. Just quickly, Michael Tarver, I think, they bigged him up. I think he was a legitimate, like a boxer, but his punches look worse than Shane McMahon punches, which is not a good sign.
But that's like all he does as well. He just throws some punches and then is eliminated.
He looks hard. Like, he looks like, I think he got a strong look, but other than that,
yeah. I think at this point you can already tell that Michael Tarver's probably not going to be sticking around, and you probably think that Darren Young isn't going to be sticking around, but that is not the case. But then this is where it starts to really get into the meat of the match. The Nexus call on their enforcer, Skip Sheffield, aka Ryback. He comes in to try and settle the ship and starts to take control against Morrison. But at this point, it's all like this is where the crowd are starting to get distracted and just want Bret Hart coming in. So you're just getting constant "We want Bret" chants. And I mean, when you see the state, you probably don't want him for that long anyway.
Definitely don't want him in with Skip Sheffield. It seems mean to Bret Hart. We want this ill man to fight this absolute roided up, possibly roided up.
Don't say that about roid back.
That would be cruel to Bret.
Now, obviously, like, you can see that they're booking Skip Sheffield quite strongly in this match.
They're booking really strong. I forgot, like, they make him look like a beast.
Yeah. But what I can't get, and obviously when he becomes Ryback, you get a lot of that booking as well. Skip Sheffield is a really, really weak name for someone who WWE have thought, this is someone that we actually like.
He gets injured not long after this and misses most of the Nexus, just comes back as Ryback. But yes, I think Skip Sheffield is not a future star. You're not putting that on your main events. And his catchphrase in NXT, when he was like a face in the series NXT, was "you-dip-dip-dip-doo," which again would not have caught on, I don't think.
No. I think "feed me more" is catchier, and it could also be used as one of your catchphrases.
Well, "feed me less" would be mine.
That's what you'd want it to be, but it's not. But then Sheffield eliminates John Morrison, so it's a little bit iffy. The ref's distracted. Justin Gabriel kicks Morrison, and then we get the clothesline and the finish, and then R-Truth comes in and is also eliminated pretty quickly. So now we're 5 versus 5. The numbers game are equal. After that, not much happens for a bit. There's quite a few different tags of various superstars get in. We don't get any of the big names at this point. But then the tag is made and Bret Hart makes his triumphant in-ring return against Heath Slater. Now, what I liked about this when Bret Hart enters the ring is Michael Cole saying that leading Team WWE to victory would be the greatest SummerSlam moment of Bret Hart's career. Now, he's one of the people that's talked about if we're trying to define a Mr. SummerSlam, you'd probably say Bret Hart is right up there. I mean, he won the 1997 WWF Championship at SummerSlam, to name just one of many achievements in this matches. I really don't think this would be his career highlight at SummerSlam. I don't know whether you would agree with that.
Pinning Heath Slater.
Yeah, but then his time in this match is unfortunately quite brief. He goes for the sharpshooter, and Wade Barrett chucks a chair in. And now, what I don't understand, like the logic behind this. But Bret Hart sees the chair, so picks it up and just starts attacking Skip Sheffield with it. Like, he knows he's going to get disqualified. He's got the sharpshooter locked in. I don't know what he's trying to do. And then he's really annoyed that he does get disqualified.
Yeah, like they're shouting at the ref, but he threw it in. It's like, those aren't the rules. Like,
you don't have to pick it up and hit people with it.
It's like Cena and Bret Hart are both. It's like, you've both been in their business long enough to know the rules. You can't just hit people with a steel chair, regardless of who's thrown it in.
No. Then, so obviously 5 versus 4, we get Chris Jericho comes in, hits the code breaker on Skip Sheffield. It's like one of those moves that I think is pretty underrated. It looks brutal.
Yeah, it looks like it would actually hurt. You can hit it from pretty much out of anywhere. But that's not enough to eliminate old Skip. They're really building him up. Like, he gets steel chair, code breaker. It's not enough.
No. We get Edge tagged in. And we get the spear. And that's what does it for poor old Skip.
Oh, yibba-bip-de-doo, or whatever it is.
That's what he says as he's eliminated. Yeah. Just crying. Yibba-bip-de-doo. Then we get Barrett tagged in and he starts to take control against Edge. Yes, there's still plenty to go here.
Yeah, we're still at 4v4.
Yeah, and it dawns on me that we haven't seen John Cena do anything yet. So
he's keeping himself fresh.
He is.
When he needs to get in,
he will need to be fresh in order to survive what he goes through. We've got David Otunga wants a piece of Edge but gets a DDT. Y2J gets tagged in and taps. And yeah, David Otunga is tapped to the walls. I think.
Yeah. Poor Jennifer Hudson's husband.
Yeah, she doesn't look to be in the audience, so I don't know what she actually.
And he's in LA as well. So it must have been.
But it's just like one of the things watching back is just how fun to watch Chris Jericho is, just with everything he does in this match. As we said at the start of this, it's a really fun match to watch. Obviously, a lot happens, which is why we're kind of racing through it. But I think Jericho in particular just looks brilliant. But then we get a bit of a mix-up. So Chris Jericho runs into John Cena, who's obviously on the apron, and Slater hits him for the pin. So then we've got 3 versus 3. Cena and Edge, obviously there's a bit of death stares between Jericho and Cena. And then we have Cena and Edge start to argue about who's going to come into the ring next. We mentioned these.
I haven't been in yet.
He hasn't. It's factually accurate. But like we say, these tensions between Jericho, Edge, and Cena really start to come to the fore. And what I like about this, when they're arguing, you just see Daniel Bryan in the background, just kind of like, "No, guys,
hey, no." He looks like an out of his depth babysitter when 2 like sibling toddlers are throwing things at each other. Like, oh no,
please stop. But again, this leads to obviously Edge being distracted, and Slater hits the roll-up elimination. It's 2 versus 3. We've got Cena and Daniel Bryan are the only people left for Team WWE. And then outside, we've got Edge spears Cena, and Jericho and Edge just attack Cena outside the ring.
Jericho yells, "You stupid, stupid man," which I really liked. Like, you're a stupid, stupid man.
And then that's when the crowd are all starting chanting for Daniel Bryan to come in. And this is one thing, obviously, like me not watching much of the time, is just how over Daniel Bryan is already. Like, how much of a big name he is. Like, no. Michael Cole, of course, calls him a goofball and said he would rather have The Miz, obviously.
Yeah. But in terms of like Daniel Bryan's character, he is the least, at this point is his things that I'm a very serious wrestler. I'm the best wrestler. I'll kick your head in. Oh, what a goof. He's a goofy character, him.
Oh, dear. And then we end up with Cena and Barrett in the ring. Cena's getting beat up. Starts to tease the comeback with a couple of kicks, but then Barrett hits him with a clothesline. Now, all throughout and from this point onwards, you start to see the tease of the Cena comeback being on.
Yeah.
But then every time it's kind of like brutally put down. So you think maybe they're not going to do that. Maybe they're hinting at it, but no. Maybe the Nexus will win this and they will destroy John Cena. Spoiler alert, they will not.
Oh.
You get Cena and Justin Gabriel in the ring. There's a tease of the attitude adjustment, which is called at this point. Darn PG programming.
Yeah, we've moved forward from the FU.
No, I know. And then we start to get, there's a near fall as well. Barrett gets tagged in, and then the Cena comeback begins. We've got the Let's Go Cena sucks, rather. I don't know why they chant Stucks.
Yeah. Cena's stuck in a rut. Yeah, very much the sort of soundtrack of the next couple of years is the high-pitched Let's Go Cena and the low-pitched Cena sucks.
We've still got Michael Cole just kind of ripping Daniel Bryan a new one on commentary and just says he'd rather have Matt Striker on the team than Daniel Bryan. He just really wants The Miz there, and you can understand why.
It's heartbreaking, really, to see him.
Yeah, and then we get Cena and Slater in the ring, and we spoke about it before, the double clothesline spot where they both run into each other. Cena crawls, and we get Daniel Bryan tagged in, and the crowd are going wild for this, and he comes in, he's all fired up. I've put a note here. So this match does put over up and coming talent, just not the ones anyone was expecting it to put over.
The person on Team WWE.
You get Heath Slater tapping to the crossface, and Heath Slater as well is booked quite strong in this match. Like, considering how he just becomes a joke figure for many years.
A comedy jobber,
yeah. Like he's put over quite well. But then we get interference from The Miz, obviously, because there's not enough going on already with the
14
superstars in the ring. We need The Miz. He hits Daniel Bryan with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and Barrett pins Bryan, and we've got the 2 versus 1, and the entire hopes of Team WWE rest on John Cena's shoulders.
Now, who saw that coming?
I did not, and I knew the result of the match when I watched it. But so you get the infamous 5 moves of doom on Justin Gabriel, but as he's going for the AA, Barrett taps in, so he lifts Justin Gabriel up onto his shoulders. There's the tag from Barrett.
Tag.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Then we just get John Cena beaten up in the corner. Then just at this point, John Cena starts to get absolutely destroyed, but in the 2-on-1 situation, we've got a big boot, and Cena falls to the outside of the ring. And now this is where it starts.
This is where it takes a sharp decline.
Because John Cena is being absolutely destroyed. Gabriel and Wade Barrett, obviously Cena's outside the ring. They start to pull up the mats outside the ring and exposing the concrete. Although Justin Gabriel seems to have a real hard time doing this. He pulls it all up and it just folds back on him a couple of times. He's like, no, please, come on. So there's a lot of that. And then we get John Cena DDT'd head first into the exposed concrete. Surely there's no coming back from this.
I mean, when I started wrestling, if that happened, you were out for a month. Like, it didn't even happen in matches. It was like a post-match attack. You got DDT'd on concrete, you were done. But
so
not the case here.
Would you say a month is longer than less than a minute?
I mean, time is relative.
But then, so obviously they have this DDT. They try and get Cena back in the ring for a 450 splash from Justin Gabriel to really finish him off. And then John Cena goes from being pretty much knocked out to like the quickest I've ever seen him move. Like, it's so ridiculous. Yeah. He avoids the 450 splash, pins Justin Gabriel. Then Barrett comes in, and then it basically hits the STF on Barrett, and Barrett taps. It happens so quickly.
Yeah. It's like a really long match, and then suddenly it's like, oh, Cena's won. Cena wins, lol, is the famous meme.
Yeah. Now, what I've put in the notes here, it seems to me this last bit is just booked like a house show. Like, where whatever happens, you still have to have the good guy go over just for the sake of it. And there's no real logic behind it or anything like that. It just has to happen, but not the main event of the second biggest pay-per-view in the company, which I think when you look at the booking has a lot of heel wins in its history anyway.
Yeah, so this was something I looked up because this match gets sort of talked a lot about on wrestling podcasts such as this one, but from actual wrestlers. I'm yet to be a wrestler yet, but that will come in the future, of course. Edge and Jericho have talked about it, Cena's talked about it, but the one person I wanted to mention who's discussed it was Wade Barrett, and he's talked about the entire build up to it. The agents had told him, like Arn Anderson, people like that, told him that they were going over. It gets to the day of the show, they book through like who's getting eliminated by who and what's happening, and it gets down to the end, and they're like, oh yeah, and then Cena wins. And Barrett's like, what? Sorry? And so they go and they find Vince and they ask him. Vince said that SummerSlam always has to have a happy ending because it's SummerSlam. So I decided to look into that. So in 2009, the year before, a heel CM Punk beat Jeff Hardy. Not technically a happy ending, but then Undertaker came out and chokeslammed Punk. So kind of, okay, you're all right with that one, Vince. In 2006, so 4 years before this, Edge used brass knucks to beat John Cena for a title. That is not a happy ending. And then pretty much every year since, there's been an unhappy ending. So in 2011, Alberto Del Rio cashed his Money in the Bank to take the title off the big face of the company at the time, CM Punk. In 2012, Brock Lesnar beats Triple H to a pulp, taps him out to the Kimura, breaks his arm, and the commentators are saying Triple H might have to retire. In 2013 is when Daniel Bryan got screwed by the Authority, so he beat John Cena for the title. then got pedigreed by Triple H, and Randy Orton cashed in to take the title off him. A very unhappy ending. 2014, heel Brock Lesnar beats face John Cena. 2015 could technically be a happy ending. Undertaker beat Brock, but he did it by cheating. 2016 is when Brock basically killed Randy Orton. So it was when he sort of got him on the ground and just elbowed him continuously in the head till blood was spurting out of Randy Orton's head. Nice happy ending for the kids there. 2017, Brock again won, retaining his title. And then 2018 is when this run of unhappy endings ends, with Roman Reigns beating Brock Lesnar. It's obviously unhappy for the Smarks, but happy in the context of the kayfabe. So maybe getting this wrong, made Vince reassess having SummerSlam be a happy ending. But yeah, it's one of those Vince things where he just randomly decides something at a moment in time. It's like, this is what we always do. And then like a couple of months later, be like, oh, actually, I don't care about that anymore.
Yeah, I think as well, just on from that, I don't think John Cena wins at SummerSlam until he beats Baron Corbin. A couple of years ago. So also Cena's like, no, you can't win here again, not after this one. So yeah, I think they probably do try and use both of those to kind of level it out or even it out from a karma perspective. So what are your thoughts? Obviously, you were watching wrestling at the time. When this happened, how happy were you that you got that happy ending at the end of the match?
I was more just confused, because I think everyone going into it thought the Nexus were winning, because that made the most sense. Like, you got this hot new act, big storyline going around them. You want to build that momentum, and then they just lose to Cena, and really from then on they were just dead in the water. They just looked, like easily beatable. They were not a force anymore, and yeah, it just kind of snowballs for them. And then a year later, only two of them are on the 2011 SummerSlam show, which is Barrett versus Bryan. So two of them are on the show, but in one match. So it clearly, you talked about building up those stars. It did not work out that way.
No, it didn't. I think the thing for me watching this is that you could almost argue that there are ways that you can book Cena to win this, and it not being so terrible. The fact that the DDT to the concrete, like you say, that's in kayfabe wise, that's usually used as a means of putting someone out for months. Yeah, exactly. To then go seconds later to just being completely fine and eliminating the other two members of the team, like, it's just done so poorly. You say the thing about Vince kind of getting the idea into his head, and it's debatable, and from different sources kind of argue as to who's responsible for John Cena going over. Was this something that was pushed by Cena himself, or is this something that's come from a top down from Vince? It depends who you want to listen to. Obviously, John Cena says he just does his job and does what he's told.
Yeah, that was the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard. I mean, I do like Cena now, but he is very corporate. Like, he's got that, I know what the right thing to say at the right time. I don't know why that kind of went into an Obama impression. And, I'm not comparing this, but he's got that very company line, safe sort of way of talking. And he says, listen, I go to work, I do my job. That's what I do. I'm booked to lose, I lose. I'm booked to win, I'll win. It's not for me to say. It's like, okay, so you've never politics before, John. Okay, yeah, let's believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine someone winning 17 championships, not politicking at all.
On Vince.
Especially when they've only got 5 moves.
Yeah, but he says he says that basically it was booked for the Nexus to lose, but he wanted the ending to be the ending, and he admits that that was wrong. And then you had Jericho and Edge who said that Cena specifically pushed for that to be the ending, and not that he chose the result, but that is how he wanted the ending. And they were like, this is really stupid, don't do it. And then basically as soon as he got to the back afterwards, he was like, yeah, that was wrong.
If only you could have seen that happening, John.
When you've listened to two more experienced wrestlers give you both be like, no.
It's that thing. It plays in quite nicely of obviously Jericho and Edge arguing that, and also them being in storyline against Cena.
Yeah, real life, coming to the fore.
Stop winning, John. But yeah, so in terms of what happens afterwards, there's a lot. Darren Young gets exiled from Nexus the night after because they do the 7-on-7, but as individual matches. So each 7 have an individual match with each other, and Darren Young's the only one who loses, obviously against John Cena. But then he gets exiled for that. But the feud continues over the summer, autumn, and winter. Wade Barrett uses his title opportunity that he won as the winner of NXT at Night of Champions as part of a 6-pack elimination match. Like, why would you? Why would you do it then?
Yeah, go for a 1-on-1.
Yeah, he's beaten by the eventual winner of that match, Randy Orton. At Hell in a Cell, Wade Barrett beats Cena, and as a stipulation of that match, John Cena has to join Nexus. Now, this just, when you read it back, just sounds very convoluted.
Yeah.
Wrestling storylines often are, but yeah. The Nexus then end up winning their first championships in WWE when Cena and David A-List Otunga defeat Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre to win their WWE Tag Team Championship.
A team I completely forgot were Tag Team Championship. I do not have any recollection of that whatsoever.
And in the main event, whatever pay-per-view that was or match that was, which I haven't written down, but whatever, the main event of that was Wade Barrett defeated Orton via disqualification, this time caused by Cena, who was chosen. Cena then gets chosen as Barrett's special guest referee for the WWE Championship rematch against Orton at Survivor Series, declaring that unless he wins the title, Cena would be fired. But if Barrett defeats Orton that night, then Cena would be relieved of all his responsibilities to the Nexus. And then the following night on Raw, Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater win the WWE Tag Team Championship after Barrett orders Otunga to allow Slater to pin him. So much going on and still so much more to go through, guys. Like if we ever do an NWO episode, like this is just going to be this times 1,000.
1,000,000.
Yeah. But Survivor Series, Barrett loses to Orton, so Cena is fired, but obviously he's not really fired. Cena keeps returning and to attack Barrett. We then get...
This is CM Punk's on commentary at the time, and he's like, I've been fired from a lot of jobs. I never just keep turning up and beating people up.
But that's what happens, and it's what I've done in my previous employment as well.
I don't think he's even off an episode of Raw. Like he's on every single show since being fired.
The kids need to go home happy.
That is true.
We also then get Husky Harris and Michael McGillicuddy joining the Nexus. So they were contestants in NXT Series 2. They would later become Bray Wyatt and Curtis Axel. And again, two names that if these are stars that you're wanting to build for the future, Husky Harris and Michael McGillicuddy are not names you
sound like goons, like.
But like Michael McGillicuddy, he's comes from a long wrestling lineage.
Mr. Perfect Son.
Mr. Perfect Son. His surname is Hennig. You can use that, but no, Michael McGillicuddy.
And then when they change it, they're like, okay, Curtis Axel. No, use his name. like imagine if they called Charlotte Flair like Squiddly Doo. Like she just wouldn't have main evented WrestleMania.
Squiggly Doo. That's great.
And then there's also acknowledge her family.
I would love that. Then we get a really exciting power struggle between Wade Barrett and David Otunga. Cena says he'll only stop the attacks if he's rehired, so which Barrett does to avoid mutiny from the rest of the group. And then the feud really comes to an end at TLC. So we've said that, the match at SummerSlam is the burial. At TLC, Wade Barrett is literally buried under chairs after a chairs match, which is still a match where I'm not sure what the rules are. It's
you can hit people with chairs.
But it's like, you've got your tables matches, your ladders matches. Well, to make it tails, we've got to have a chairs match. And then
It's with chairs.
No DQ.
Just a normal no DQ match. More chairs.
They should change it where like you have to get your opponent to sit in the chair for like
sit down. Yeah.
So you like have to knock them out. Like a bit like a last man standing match.
Or it could be like
but
musical
in a chair.
chairs, but instead of a song, you had a fight, and then you had to get to the chair.
But yes, if you haven't seen Wade Barrett getting buried underneath,
literally buried,
it is the. You could maybe argue they didn't really know what they were doing at SummerSlam. That they could still had hope for him at this point. It's
a very clear indication of where he stands.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of pushing Zack Ryder off in a wheelchair. Then we get CM Punk taking over the Nexus. Barrett, Slater, and Gabriel form the core with Ezekiel Jackson.
And that's with 2 R's.
I mean, why? Why not? And then obviously, like, Barrett up to this point, he's either booked as a leader of a gang, or he will then... And then his gimmick after the core breakup is the bull hammer, which is, he's, I'm a real fighter. I've obviously got this bare knuckle boxing background. Again, booking someone with a real fighting background in a fake sport is problematic at the best of times. It just about works for Brock Lesnar, but it's not one that you can kind of do all the time. It's like, I'm a real fighter. It's like, why are you in the WWE then?
Yeah, go do boxing then, mate.
Exactly. But then he's in mid-card limbo until the Bad News Barrett gimmick. Sorry, you were going to say?
Well, yeah, I was just going on the Bad News. Well, firstly, bare knuckle boxer, but then his finisher was a forearm. You can't throw forearms in boxing. And then with Bad News Barrett, so he's a heel. It got massively over. The crowd were loving him, like chanting along Bad News with him. And they're like, right, this heel we've got, the crowd seems to be really liking his new gimmick. So what should we do? We should probably turn him face, make him into a good guy. No. We'll take away the thing people like about him and just ignore it. Oh, but won't that just completely kill his momentum and make him nothing? Yeah, but I can't be asked to build any new stars at the moment.
What I liked about that is that for ages they were still calling him Bad News Barrett. So that was his name, but he's like never delivered any bad news. Didn't do.
And he was King Barrett for a bit. God,
yeah. And like the way they
massacred my boy.
The way they've booked like King of the Ring, like recently, it's just poor. Like it's to give someone that has done like an okay job in the mid card, but we don't want any storylines around that. They can just wear a crown for a bit. And then I think that the last faction that Barrett then ends up being part of is the League of Nations, which is not the faction that it should have been. I tweeted WWE several times about my booking suggestion for what they should do. I think the Sun's wrestling Twitter feed retweeted it. It didn't get any traction, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
At this time, you had 3 English wrestlers on the roster. You had Bad News Barrett, you had Neville, and you had Page. Barrett, Neville, Page. The BNP, it would have been the greatest British nationalist faction the WWE has ever seen. Instead of just like, they could have even done it combined with the League of Nations. He could have started in the League of Nations. So that was Barrett, Sheamus, Rusev, and Alberto Del Rio. Yeah. I think. But then we could
alliance of Britain, Bulgaria, Mexico, and Ireland.
Not just Bulgaria, but a Russian sympathizing Bulgarian, which made even less sense. But you could have then had Barrett leave and just form a solo British group as part of that, the BNP, which would have been amazing. And I still think it would be amazing if they would all just re-sign. Like, I don't know what's to like.
Well, Barrett and Page are technically under contract. Neither can wrestle anymore, but they're still WWE employees.
I was going to say if we got Neville back, then we could have like a commentary kind of alliance, but he's got a very BNP thick Geordie accent.
Oh, he's done a pile driver like it.
But I think in terms of when we're talking about what Wade Barrett did after this. We've spoken about his in-ring career, but I think the most career-defining moment for Wade Barrett is in 2011 when he decides to get a new tattoo. He gets a tattoo of the lyrics "Culture, Alienation, Boredom, and Despair" on his arm, which is obviously a lyric by the Manic Street Preachers. And he speaks about this in a very fascinating episode of Superstar Inc., which I would recommend you all watch. But
if he's a big fan of the Manics, for anyone not aware.
Yeah, big Manics fan. Wade Barrett's music taste is better than his wrestling career.
I think that's why Vince decided to put the coolers on him, stop pushing. He's like, he likes the Manics. That shit, goddammit. I only like Your Love Alone is not enough.
And the Manics at this point offered on Twitter to record a new theme music for Wade Barrett. And one of the things since leaving Nexus, Wade Barrett has had loads of entrance music, all of which have been uniformly shite.
The one where it starts at God Save the Queen. Like, what the fuck? English Queen, national anthem, solid.
But you can tell that WWE have a load of stock guitar music, like we were saying earlier, for Daniel Bryan's entrance music. And Wade Barrett has probably used about at least half of the ones that are in their back catalogue. But obviously the Manics don't end up recording a song for Wade, which is incredibly sad.
That's what could have made him the world champion.
It would have been, and would have broke the Manics in America as well, which is, something
sweet.
that needs to happen. And I think they're in the late 40s, 50s now, so it might still happen because musicians are cool at that age.
Famous 50-year-old. Well, they rock stars famously get their big breaks at 50.
So, I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole list of what everyone else's career actually ends up in. Cena wins loads more shit.
Yeah.
Everyone else pretty much gets fired.
From the Nexus,
points. Yeah, from the Nexus and from the company in general, in most cases.
I think the only people in this match who didn't leave wrestling, so obviously Edge retired, Jericho's gone to AEW, so the only people that continually stayed in WWE, Cena, R-Truth, I think it's just Cena and R-Truth. Barrett's still there now, but as a commentator. Bryan obviously had to retire and come back, as did Edge. He's only just come back.
David Otunga, is he still background stuff?
He's employed, but I don't think he's done anything for about 4 years. And when he was employed, he was commentating. So the only ones who've stayed with the WWE wrestling the whole time are Cena and R-Truth. So they built those stars.
They built those stars. Just to flag in terms of Justin Gabriel, obviously he continued being the mid to lower card kind of guy. Came to prominence again, accompanying Adam Rose as the Bunny.
Oh yeah, they were going to do stuff with the Bunny, make it an evil bunny. Apparently, but that never took off.
Which is such a shame because I loved Adam Rose. It's really annoying because I keep looking at Adam Rose matches to kind of do, but he's never done any match that's kind of note enough to actually include to discuss. But just a great character. Skip Sheffield obviously becomes Ryback, as we've mentioned. Daniel Bryan's career goes quite well. Yeah.
The WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, that is good. You loved that.
I did. That's probably going to be discussed at some point in the podcast if things go well for me.
Yeah. So we've got that to look forward to if this boy loses weight, but of course he has no chance.